Hi everyone, this is Neel Raithatha, also known as the Wax Whisperer. Thank you for joining me in my latest video. We have here a patient who attended with bilateral fully occluding earwax, and they have a very twisty, bendy ear canal. This is their right ear. This is the worst ear out of the two. They were reporting not only hearing loss on this side, but a bit of otalgia, so earache, and a bit of tinnitus. So tinnitus is typically a ringing or buzzing sound, but it can actually be any sound that originates either within the ears or inside your head. Most of us, I would suspect, have experienced tinnitus in the past. I sometimes experience it after a long day. When I'm a bit fatigued, I get a little ringing noise in my ear, and after a short while, it disappears. Others can experience tinnitus more constantly, sometimes all day, every day, and it can be quite a debilitating condition for some patients. So if you are suffering from tinnitus, do visit your GP or consult an audiologist to see if anything can be done, not necessarily to cure it, because there is no magic silver bullet to cure tinnitus. There's no surgical procedure, for example, or medication, but depending upon the cause, sometimes it can be eradicated. For example, some patients experience tinnitus because they have earwax. Now, that's not the majority, but it is possible. So the simple removal of earwax can eradicate someone's tinnitus. Other times, though, we simply just don't know the exact underlying cause. There's so many reasons as to why people can experience tinnitus. It could be in response to loud sounds and noise-induced tinnitus. Hearing loss can also cause tinnitus. Stress, fatigue, certain medications, diet. So the list is kind of endless, really. But if you are experiencing tinnitus and it's troublesome for you, do visit your GP, consult with an audiologist alternatively, especially if it's unilateral, so it's just in one ear, or it's asymmetrical, or so you have it in both sides, but it's worse in one ear. Or also if your tinnitus is pulsatile, so it's kind of rhythmic, it can be cardiosynchronous pulsatile, so in line with your heartbeat pulse. Even if it's not, if it's pulsatile or it's asymmetrical, so when we say asymmetrical, it means that you have it in both ears, but it's more pronounced in one, or you just get it in one. And if it's just you're getting it for a couple of seconds a day or once a week, then we wouldn't deem that significant. But if you are getting it daily, more than 5 minutes at a time, do get that checked, because there can be a more serious underlying cause as to why you've got that tinnitus, and which needs further investigation. So as you can see, remove the earwax, the eardrum's intact. I'm just mopping up at the entrance of the ear canal. I'm just using a fine end suction probe here. They have got a very thin eardrum, so we did have to be careful there. You could probably see the eardrum was flexing quite a lot whilst we're performing microsuction, so the eardrum itself was getting attracted by the suction, so we had to be very gentle there. So with the left ear, I've just cleared the entrance of the ear first, and this time I'm using the endoscope, the right-hand side of the endoscope, to stretch the ear open to the right-hand side, which then allows access for me to insert the instrument into the ear. The wax in this side was a bit more soft and glutinous, which made it harder to vacuum, so I've just instilled some medical-grade olive oil into the ear, and the olive oil spray works a treat. If you've been watching my videos and channel over the years, you know I always compare olive oil to an egg in some sort of recipe where you're buying ingredients. So the most common example I give is a potato cake or fish cake recipe. And in the same way, that's what olive oil tends to do. It tends to bind the wax together to make it a bit firmer. So when I do vacuum it, it comes out in large chunks. Otherwise, when it's soft, mushy and glutinous as it was, it comes out in little bits. It can block the inside of the suction probe, so it's a bit of a nightmare. So we are making good progress, but this plug of wax and skin is directly embedded onto the eardrum, and you'll see that in a moment. You may just start seeing the eardrum appearing on the right-hand side, just near there we are. So around 2 o'clock, that's the patient's eardrums. This plug is well and truly impacted. It just blocked my suction probe there. That's why I was giving it a little wriggle in the ear. And you can see there's a higher concentration of dead skin. You can actually see the skin, sheets of skin within the wax, just there on the right to the sucker, that's a sheet of skin. And dead skin can, once it's died and wilted, and if it's macerated, it can become very sticky, almost like caramel and fudge. We can see half the eardrum, but as mentioned, it is impacted on the drum. The eardrum is very narrow on this side as well. It's what we call hyperflaccid. I myself have got hyperflaccid eardrums. It doesn't impact on my hearing, but I do feel my eardrums vibrate and respond in sudden changes of altitude, probably more so than the normal person would. And when I'm going through tunnels, I can feel the air pressure change within my ears. And that's because my eardrums are very, very thin, and they're hyperflaccid, they're hypermobile. Normally that's caused by a thinning of the eardrum, or just a naturally thin eardrum, so not a thinning, but you're born with so it's congenital, you're born with a thin eardrum. It can sometimes be acquired. So, for example, if you've had a perforation of the eardrum, when you have a perforation of the eardrum, all three layers, membranes of the eardrums, have a hole through it. And when the eardrum heals, normally it's just the outer layer, so the outer layer of skin that lines the ear canal it forms the outer layer of the eardrum, the epithelial epidermis layer, and the innermost membrane, the mucosa, that lines the middle ear. Those two layers heal, but the middle layer, the fibrous layer, doesn't. So it can create a thinning in that region where you had a perforation, and that can cause the eardrum to be hypermobile. Another reason why people can experience hypermobile eardrums is if the three ossicles, so the three middle ear bones, the hammer, anvil and stirrup, also known as the malleus, anvil and incus, they are all connected, and when the sound hits the eardrum, the vibrations are transmitted through the three bones like a lever system, and the last bone, the stapes bone, is connected to the organ of hearing, the cochlea, at a region called the oval window. And when the stapes bone moves backwards and forwards, it sets off waves of fluid within the organ of hearing, the cochlea, which then travel over little sensory microscopic outer hair cells that produce an electrical signal subsequently, which is sent to the brain, and we process that sound. So if those three bones become disjointed, so disarticulated, or in some way, another term given to it is ossicular discontinuity, they're no longer connected, that can cause the eardrum just to become very, very flaccid and vibrate because there's no tension with the bones. That lever system is no longer present. There's a bit of wax just left in the anterior recess, but because the eardrum is very thin, we've got to be careful, so I decided to leave it. I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Take care, keep well.